everyone. So I'm Shauna McCafferty. I'm a physician completing my final weeks of pediatric residency in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm starting a developmental peds fellowship in July, where I'll be focusing on children with medical complexity, special healthcare needs, developmental delay, children that are generally pretty vulnerable. I also have 3 of my own children who are 1, 5, and 7. So before we started my project not really my project, the residency's project, this was already near and dear to my heart. So our residency program partnered with a project called, a nonprofit, Darkness to Light, which is an organization committed to educating and empowering adults who are involved with the care of children in any capacity to prevent child sexual abuse and assault. And it's a phenomenal, absolutely wonderful program that has a kind of 5-step process to empower adults that really involves like learning the facts about child abuse, sexual abuse, minimizing opportunities that their children may have, talking about sexual abuse, and that involves like talking about bodies, proper body parts, terminology, then recognizing the signs of abuse, and then teaching adults to react responsibly when their children outcry. So without knowing all of the pieces, these were already kinds of things that I was like trying to do and encourage with my own children before I learned of Darkness to Light. And I loved it when I found out there's a place that was kind of putting everything all together. I think where that comes into play for me as a pediatrician in my primary care clinic with my patients involves having a set of books that can talk about bodies and terminology and things, kind of introducing concepts to parents and kids in an appropriate way to talk about things. So I have 3 books that are kind of recommended that we can talk about. This one is My Body. If anyone has this book around. This one is pretty simple. It kind of goes over some basic body parts like these are my eyes and my ears and my mouth. We use our mouth to smile, pout, give kisses, and talk about what the mouth can do. And then the ears and the hands. What can our hands do? This book doesn't go into proper terminology of our special parts or our private parts, but it does start to talk about bodies. And so I use this book in class to, in my clinic, like, show me your eyes, show me your hands, show me your feet, show me your ears, so that I can kind of teach younger children to recognize their own bodies and talk about them and the parts. And while we're already talking about body parts, I'll start a conversation with the parents and the children about, do you know what your special parts are? And this is actually a conversation I start having with the parents much earlier, before the children are really cognizant of the conversation. When I'm doing the standard part of the Well Child Check, where I examine their genitals and I do like the top to bottom exam, I always encourage parents to teach early and often, like proper terminology, vagina and penis and scrotum or testicles. And I tell parents early that this is important. That way, when your child is old enough to tell you what's wrong with their body as far as boo-boos or ouchies, or when they've been hurt, they know what those words mean, and other adults will know what those words mean, which in South Carolina can be kind of a challenging thing. There's a lot of ideas associated with terminology for genitals, so it's something that has to come up often with parents. And with kids in the like 2 to 4 age range, I usually use the example of special parts being anything that your bathing suit covers. So if you have a bathing suit on, that would be your breasts, and that would be your vagina, and that would be your butt. And that's usually enough. Like those 3 private parts, it's like a good place to begin for a little girl, or penis and butt or testicles for a boy. So this is kind of a good book to start with, like just the body parts. The next book that we have in my clinic, the Resident Continuity Clinic in Charleston, is I Take Care of Myself. This is, I really like this book. It's pretty simple. A 5-year-old can read this on their own with some help from adults. I wash myself in the tub, really simple words. I brush my teeth. A couple ones like I get myself dressed. I play outside. It's teaching bodily autonomy and independence and taking care of yourself. And I use this for the 5 or 6-year-olds in the well child checks to have conversations about, like, especially on this page, I've often stopped where it says, I wash myself in the tub. For maybe like 4 to 5, I'll use examples like, I'll introduce a concept that is mentioned in the Darkness to Light program about having responsible adults that are available, and like, who are your special grown-ups, or who are your adults, who are the people that you can trust. And when we talk about washing yourself in the tub, say, who is allowed to help you wash yourself in the tub? And usually I'm like, oh, mama or grandma, or whomever is in the house. I say your grown-ups or your adults, in case there's a foster parent or an adopted parent, or a grandma or an auntie or someone, because there are a lot of diverse relationships in my clinic with a lot of the social situations that come in. And so that is a way to destigmatize who that child's grown-ups are or special adults are that they can trust. And when we're talking about washing our bodies, I say your special grown-ups or your adults is the person who is allowed to help you, but only to wash your body, and only to help you go to the bathroom, and only if you have a boo-boo. Otherwise, nobody is allowed to help you wash your body. Nobody is allowed to touch your special parts. So that's kind of a book that I use to introduce the concept of like taking care of yourself, who is allowed to help you take care of yourself, and when and in what context. Same with another page about like, I help myself get dressed. Talk about like, who is allowed to help you get dressed? When is it okay to take off your clothes? Where is it okay to take off your clothes and put them back on? And what should we do if someone tells you to take off your clothes? Depending on how the day is going with like that child and how aware that 5 or 6-year-old is. So those are 2 that are in my continuity clinic that can help with ideas surrounding getting over discomfort of talking about body parts and terminology and maybe uncomfortable things to say out loud. And then there's one other book I want to mention. We don't have it in the continuity clinic, but maybe y'all have seen it, called Who Has What? May or may not be familiar. This one's mentioned, recommended from Darkness to Light, but we don't have it as part of our Reach Out and Read program in our clinic, but it's really great. It's one of the 3 that kind of goes into very specific parts. So it talks about ovaries, and it talks about testicles, and what is the purpose of ovaries, and what is the purpose of a vagina, and what is the purpose of a penis. We don't have this in my continuity clinic. It's longer, and it's 100% something that is going to need a comfortable adult to talk through it with. I introduced it to my own children who were 5 and 7, and they laughed through the entire thing. There are parts of it that talk about, like, they try to destigmatize ovaries and testicles and penis by saying even dogs have these parts, even dogs have a penis, or even, mommy puppies have a uterus. And they talk about very general what these things do. And it talks about butts being used to go pee and poop. And my children really couldn't finish the book because they were too busy laughing about pee and poop at 5 and 7. But it made it fun, I guess, for them, and they did enjoy it. It made me a little bit uncomfortable because I felt like the next question was going to be like, where do babies come from? And I couldn't imagine having that conversation with a 5 or 7-year-old in my continuity care clinic. I wasn't quite ready. My 5-year-old was ready for it, but it is a really good book to explore if you want a kind of funny, well done, appropriate, correct, like scientifically correct way to talk about body parts and introduce them to children. 3 books that we have that are recommended by Darkness to Light, 2 of which we use in our continuity clinic with our residents to really address that critical piece of talking about it, body parts and terminology, and destigmatizing everything to prevent child sexual abuse. So that's our project.
So that is great. I love using the books. Not only that you're using the Reach Out and Read books, at those ages, but then, I think all of us probably once you start doing Reach Out and Read, people tend to, every visit, it doesn't, after they're 6, 7, 8, thinking about drawing books into the conversation, it just becomes a part of your brain of how do you manage a problem. And that's kind of one of the first things I think of. A 7-year-old comes in with anxiety. How are you going to start talking about that? And have you gone to the library? Have you thought about asking your children's librarian for some help with that? Or so, but I love that you're pulling out that's a great book to actually help name body parts. So
one more thing I'll add just before we go on, in case my own kids disrupt everything at the end. The Darkness to Light program kind of has a module for like introducing facts to adults, and one of the facts they introduce is that children need to have this terminology by the age of 8. So if we because by the time they're in 3rd or 4th grade, they're already being exposed through social media, friends, conversations on the playgrounds, whether it's innocent or otherwise, and their risk for abuse just escalates. And something like 1 in 10 children will be exposed or subjected to sexual assault before they reach the age of 18. So by the age of 8. So if some of this sounds a little silly or uncomfortable at the age of 2 or 3 or 4, there's really no better time, because you have no idea when your children are going to initially be exposed. And that's, I'll jump back off my soapbox.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's really important. And I love the idea that just giving them the language, the words, that they're not embarrassed to use that language, and that they're not, bad words. I think that's very important too. So thank you.